Five Nights at Freddy's has over a dozen confirmed deaths across its timeline, and almost every single one resulted in a vengeful ghost possessing an animatronic. Almost every one, because the very first victim chose to do the opposite. Today I'm breaking down every victim in the FNAF franchise and everything we know about how they died, starting with the one that changed everything. Charlotte Emily. Charlotte Emily was 3 years old when William Afton murdered her outside Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in 1983. She is the first confirmed kill in the entire franchise timeline, and her death set off a chain reaction that would haunt every pizzeria and every night guard for decades. Her body was stuffed into the marionette animatronic, later known as the puppet. That music box you have to keep cranking in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the one that kills you if the music stops. That mechanic exists because Charlotte was afraid of the dark, which is, you know, not ideal, but here's where it gets interesting. Every other spirit in this franchise wakes up angry. They kill anyone who comes near them. Charlotte didn't do that. Her spirit became protective. In a universe built entirely on dead children trying to stuff you into metal skeletons, she's the one ghost that decided to help. Every single haunting in this franchise flows downstream from one 3-year-old girl who died outside a pizza restaurant and refused to become a monster. But Charlotte's mercy makes a lot more sense when you compare it to what happened to the next victim, who had zero interest in being nice about it. Susie was young, really young, and her last moments were spent following a man who told her that her dead dog was still alive. Let that sit for a second. William Afton lured Susie into the back room at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. She went willingly, because why wouldn't she? He told her exactly what a grieving child needed to hear. Her puppy wasn't gone. It was right back here, waiting for her. That's the kind of child she was. Trusting, kind, completely incapable of recognizing the monster standing in front of her. He stuffed her body into the Chica animatronic. And here's where the tragedy compounds itself, because Chica's entire behavioral pattern after Susie's death revolves around delivering pizza, empty cake boxes showing up at the security office, constant movement toward food-related areas. It's not random programming. It's a little girl eternally repeating gestures of kindness, twisted into something mechanical and hollow. But Susie's spirit isn't just sad, she's furious. Players wearing the yellow Afton suit in FNAF VR experience dramatically heightened aggression from Chica, and that's not a coincidence. Her rage is targeted, specific. She knows exactly what that suit represents, and she will never stop attacking anything that reminds her of him. The worst part? Her possession of Chica has inadvertently harmed living children. Susie's remnant energy doesn't distinguish between threats and innocence. She became the very thing that destroyed her, not by choice, but by the nature of what Afton turned her into, and she was the lucky one compared to what comes next. Fritz. Here's the thing about Fritz. Most of the missing children are defined by their rage. They're angry, they're confused, and they lash out at anything wearing a security uniform. Fritz is different. Fritz is thinking. He was one of Afton's earliest victims, murdered in 1983 during the first missing children incident. His body was stuffed into the Foxy animatronic behind Pirate Cove, roughly 2 weeks before Charlotte Emily met the same fate outside the pizzeria, which means Fritz was haunting that building before almost anyone else. He had time to learn, and you can see it in Foxy, that distinctive limp the animatronic has, the weird pirate accent vocal tics that don't match any of the original programming. Those aren't glitches, those are injuries. A dead child's physical trauma echoing through metal and wiring, playing on loop for decades, which is, you know, not ideal, but here's where it gets interesting. While the other spirits were throwing themselves at night guards and screaming down hallways, Fritz was playing chess. His remnant energy is responsible for deliberately triggering false kill screens, essentially feeding bad information back to William Afton. The other children wanted Afton dead. Fritz wanted him confused first. That's not instinct, that's strategy. A 7-year-old's ghost running psychological operations from inside a broken pirate fox. I don't know what to tell you, but if Fritz's calculated patience unsettles you, wait until you hear about the spirit that became the face of the entire operation. Gabriel. Gabriel was murdered at his own birthday party. A kid surrounded by friends, family, cake, the works. William Afton lured him away while everyone else was distracted, killed him, and stuffed his body into the Freddy Fazbear animatronic, the one everyone knows, the mascot, the face of the franchise. But here's where Gabriel's story goes from horrifying to something else entirely. His body was never found by authorities. It stayed inside the animatronic, decomposing, while the restaurant continued operating. Families ate pizza, kids hugged Freddy, parents took photos, and the whole time, a dead child was rotting inside the suit, mere feet away from everyone. The smell was reportedly noticed by staff multiple times, but Fazbear Entertainment's response was to do absolutely nothing meaningful about it. Customers complained about the odor and the blood and mucus leaking from the animatronics, and management just kept the doors open, which is, you know, not ideal. Here's the thing, Gabriel's soul didn't just linger, it fused with Freddy himself. He became the animatronic. The puppet, controlled by Charlotte Emily, gave life to the dead children by binding their spirits to the suits they were stuffed into. Gabriel was the one placed inside Freddy, making him the core haunting behind the most iconic animatronic in the franchise. Every time Freddy moved on his own, stared down a hallway, or appeared somewhere he shouldn't be, that was Gabriel, not a glitch, not faulty programming, a murdered child refusing to stay dead. His spirit persisted across multiple locations, multiple iterations of Freddy, because the animatronics were reused and rebuilt. The company kept recycling their own haunted hardware to save money. They built a franchise on top of a child's soul and charged families admission. But if Gabriel's fate makes your stomach turn, wait until you hear what happened to Jeremy. Nobody knows exactly when William Afton took Jeremy. That's part of what makes this one so unsettling. There's no neat timeline, no clear sequence, just 5 kids who went missing, and a man in a spring-lock suit who lured them one by one into a back room. This wasn't a man losing control. This was Patience wearing a mascot costume. Jeremy's body ended up inside Bonnie, stuffed there like the others, hidden in plain sight for years while parents ate pizza 10 feet away. Scott Cawthon confirmed the connection through the FNAF 3 minigames, where you literally watch the puppet give life to the dead children by placing them into the animatronics. Jeremy's soul shoved into a mechanical rabbit, performing on stage for the same customers who probably saw missing posters on the way in, which is, you know, not ideal for Jeremy's legacy. But here's where it gets interesting. Jeremy's spirit doesn't just haunt Bonnie the way you'd expect a traumatized child to haunt their prison. That signature red-eye glow right before Bonnie attacks? That's not random aggression. That's a 7-year-old reliving the last thing he ever saw. Someone cornering him in a dark room with nowhere to run. Every single jump scare is a memory on loop. Here's the thing though. Jeremy figured something out that the other kids didn't. Not immediately, but eventually. His spirit learned to push back. In the FNAF 3 good ending, Jeremy and the others are finally set free. Their souls are released. The lights in the animatronic heads go dark. They stop haunting, not because someone forced them out, but because they found peace. He went from victim to freed soul, which in this franchise might be the closest thing to a happy ending anyone gets. The other missing children are angry. Jeremy is angry and patient, but if you think a child trapped inside a singing robot for decades is unsettling, wait until you hear about the one victim whose identity still has the entire community at each other's throats. The crying child. Here's the thing about every other victim on this list. Someone chose to kill them. William Afton made a deliberate decision to end their lives. The crying child didn't get that. His death was an accident. A stupid, horrible, completely preventable accident that happened because his older brother thought it would be funny to scare him. And somehow, that makes it worse. The Bite of 83 is one of the most infamous events in the entire franchise. A child's head crushed by the jaws of Fredbear's animatronic during what was supposed to be a celebration. Michael Afton and his friends shoved their little brother into that mouth as a prank. The birthday boy never opened another present again, but here's where it gets existential. Every other spirit in this franchise is driven by rage, by vengeance, by the need to find their killer. The crying child has nobody to blame. There's no villain to hunt. There's no closure waiting at the end of his story. He's just trapped, forever reliving a birthday party that killed him. His spirit manifests as that rare golden Freddy hallucination, the one that appears in your office with zero warning and instantly ends your run. No chase sequence, no building tension, just there, then death, an eternal birthday surprise that nobody asked for. The community debated his identity for years, piecing together clues across minigames and hidden dialogues. His spiritual separation from Charlotte Emily is what makes him so unsettling. He's not part of her collective, he's alone. His remnant energy didn't just haunt the original pizzeria, it rotted it from the inside out. That structural decay, those security camera glitches that persist across multiple game entries, that's him, leaking through the walls like grief with nowhere to go. The community still argues whether he's secretly Michael Afton. He's not. He's just a kid who died at a party. But if you think accidental death is the worst thing that can happen to an Afton child, wait until you hear what William did to his daughter on purpose. Elizabeth Afton. Every other victim on this list was a stranger to William Afton. A kid in the wrong place. A night guard who took a bad job. Elizabeth was his daughter, and she died because she wouldn't listen to him. William told Elizabeth to stay away from Circus Baby. He knew what the animatronic was designed to do, because he built it to kill children. But Elizabeth was drawn to Baby, and when she finally got close enough, the machine did exactly what it was programmed to do. It lured her in with ice cream and scooped her into its chest cavity. His own creation murdered his own daughter. But here's where Elizabeth breaks the entire victim framework of this franchise. Every other soul was stuffed into a suit against their their will. They're trapped, angry, lashing out at anyone in a uniform. Elizabeth, she adapted. Her spirit didn't passively haunt Circus Baby. She merged with the animatronic, eventually becoming part of Anard, building herself into something far more dangerous than any single possessed suit. And then she went hunting. Elizabeth's spirit manipulated the entire chain of events in Sister Location, guiding the Funtime animatronics to combine into Enard and escape the underground facility using a technician's hollowed out body as a disguise. An 8-year-old girl killed by her father's invention, who then spent years orchestrating an escape from the prison he locked her in. I don't know what to tell you. The leading theory is that Elizabeth as Scrap Baby continued pursuing her father's approval even in death, eventually appearing at the Pizzeria Simulator location where everything finally burned. Other spirits haunt a building. Elizabeth chased her father's love across multiple bodies and decades. The difference is motive. Gabriel, Susie, Fritz, they're angry at a stranger. Elizabeth is trapped between rage and devotion toward her father, and there's nothing more tragic than a child still seeking approval from the parent who got them killed. But if you think Elizabeth's story is personal, wait until you hear about the one victim who saw everything coming and couldn't do a single thing to stop it. Phone Guy. Every single player who booted up Five Nights at Freddy's heard his voice first. Friendly, helpful, a little nervous, sure, but ultimately just a guy trying to make your first night easier. Here's the thing though, that recording wasn't a tutorial, it was a countdown. Phone Guy's final recording, the one players here on night 4, was captured as the animatronics closed in on him. Every stutter, every awkward pause, every shaky breath that players wrote off as nervous guy talking into a tape recorder was genuine terror. You can hear the moaning of Freddy's jingle playing in the background, the banging on the doors, and then the call just cuts. The Toreador March plays, and that's it. He's done, and nobody processed it the first time. Players were so focused on surviving their own nights that they barely registered what they just heard. They were listening to a man die in real time, delivered with all the emotional weight of a voicemail. The beauty of it is how Scott Cawthon buried genuine horror inside mundane delivery. Phone Guy spends his final moments still trying to be helpful, still giving you tips, still maintaining that customer service voice even as everything collapses around him. His last coherent advice is telling you to check the suits in the back room, then static, then nothing. But the truly tragic part isn't how he died, it's what happened after. Nothing. No dramatic reveal, no vengeful spirit possessing an animatronic, no grand return. The most human character in the original game, the one voice that felt like an actual person talking to you, just stops existing between night 4 and night 5. You show up the next shift and there's silence on the line. That's his entire memorial. An empty phone call. He suffered the same fate as every victim in this franchise and got absolutely zero narrative closure to show for it. No animatronic to inhabit, no vengeance to pursue, just a voice on a tape that everyone mistook for background noise. But if Phone Guy represents the franchise's most helpless victim, the next one represents its most powerful, and she's been waiting a very long time. Cassidy, every victim we've covered so far has one thing in common. They were trapped, stuck in suits, stuck in loops, stuck reliving their worst moment forever. Cassidy broke that pattern, and what they did with their freedom is the darkest thing in this entire franchise. Cassidy was murdered by William Afton, stuffed into a suit at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza alongside the other missing children. A kid at a birthday party trusting a man in a mascot costume. Their spirit latched onto Golden Freddy, and if you've ever wondered why that animatronic behaves like nothing else in the series, now you know. The crashes, the hallucinations, the impossible appearances, that's not a glitch. That's rage given form, which is, you know, not ideal. But here's where Cassidy stops being a victim and starts being something else entirely. Their spirit is the one keeping William Afton alive in hell, not accidentally, deliberately. The entity known as Golden Freddy refused to let Afton die, trapping him in an endless nightmare cycle of suffering. One soul holding another soul hostage for eternity. A child who decided death wasn't punishment enough. And unlike every other spirit in this franchise, Cassidy wasn't just haunting. They were orchestrating the hidden logs in Ultimate Custom Night, the deliberate, calculated torment designed to ensure William Afton never finds peace. This wasn't a ghost rattling chains. This was an intelligence running an operation. Cassidy created a personal purgatory where Afton dies over and over. Every animatronic turned into a weapon of suffering. No escape, no release, no end. So here's the question nobody can answer. Was Cassidy justified? They were a murdered child who ensured a serial killer would never rest. But they also became something consumed entirely by vengeance, refusing to move on. Refusing to let the other children find peace either. They started as a victim, they ended as something the franchise has never produced before, a child's ghost whose capacity for cruelty rivals their own killers. Trauma doesn't create heroes, it creates cycles. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.